The Zelda franchise is as beloved to fans as any IP, but that doesn't mean that the games are without their issues. Whether these issues are actual gameplay criticisms or bugs and glitches, there are many imperfections scattered across the mainline Zelda games. Today, I wanted to go through every mainline 3D Zelda game and pick out the biggest criticism I could find in each of them from me playing them personally. If you love Zelda stuff, you should subscribe because I post daily Zelda shorts, weekly Zelda long-form videos, and also stream Zelda content. Let's get started. Starting with the first 3D Zelda game, Ocarina of Time, I picked character interactions. Since this game is objectively the best game of all time, this was really hard to pick since this game is literally almost perfect, but I picked character interactions. I don't mean Link's interactions with them, those are fine, but I more so mean the NPCs talking or interacting with each other. The only way you would see any form of this would be from side quests, like the Big War on Sword trading thing, but that's not even direct contact between the NPCs. You never really see anybody talking to anybody else as NPCs besides Ganondorf to the king in a single cutscene, and that isn't really even a conversation, you only see Ganon. Alright, let's move on to Ocarina of Time's sequel, Majora's Mask. For this one, I picked cutscene animations. Since this game is again so great, and there honestly isn't even really a lot of room for imperfection in this game, maybe besides some dungeon designs, this criticism isn't really a big deal at all. I just couldn't think of anything bigger. Sometimes in cutscene animations, characters' animations kinda cut around and are a bit choppy. This is probably because the game was rushed, and also because the N64 kinda sucked power-wise, but I didn't even really notice any of this stuff until I played the game for the second time. The NPC interactions in this game are much better than Ocarina of Time's, by the way. Alright, let's move on to Wind Waker, and for this one I picked sailing. Since we're not including remakes in this video, the biggest problem with this game is the sea sailing. You spend a good amount of time in the game floating around on the water trying to navigate slowly to your next location. They fixed this in the remake, but if there was more stuff to do out here, this would be fine. But since most of it is literally just cartoony bright blue waves, it kinda results in a boring experience. With the Swift Sail in the HD remake, this entire problem is fixed though. Moving on to the realistic Zelda, Twilight Princess, I picked this game's colors. Twilight Princess is really cool, but the graphics have aged pretty badly. Since Twilight Princesses make everything realistic, art style kind of evolved over time. Like compare Twilight Princess to Uncharted 4, this is the same art style. The game just looks kinda washed out in the modern day. Even when the game came out, a criticism was that the game was just too desaturated, a result of the game trying to be as realistic as possible while being on a console with the power of a Samsung fridge. I agree with this take, and this is pretty much my only issue with this game. It just kinda looks like behind of a Chipotle building in some areas. Moving on to the DS Zelda games, I'm gonna say the controls. The reason I'm saying the DS Zelda games and grouping them together like this is because I have the same criticism for both Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks, being the touchscreen controls. Despite not being quite as bad as I thought they would be when I played these games, they still absolutely suck. Like, it was way too hard to spin attack, and the way Link moves is really unresponsive sometimes for some reason. It would be fine if you used it to control a boat or something, but I just found them really confusing and annoying to use, honestly. I stand firmly by the opinion that Spirit Tracks is the best narrative in the series, however. Before getting on to the next games, if you're enjoying the video so far and are interested in supporting the channel, I have an affiliate link for Green Man Gaming, so if you're interested in supporting the channel, use the link in the description for great deals on PC, Mac, and console games. Thanks. Anyway, back to the video. Getting on to Skyward Sword, I'm also gonna say the controls. Again, since we aren't counting the remakes, I'm still gonna use this as a criticism. I personally like the motion controls and the immersion it provides, but they can be way too finicky sometimes. Sometimes Link swings the wrong way when you swing the right way with the controller, and it's just way too hard to generate a Skyward Strike. Many people also struggle with just not having enough room to swing the Wiimote around. The remake fixes, of course, with the option of button controls though. For A Link Between Worlds, I'm going to say the beginning of the story. Okay, I'm not saying this game's story is bad as a whole. It's pretty good and fun to follow actually, but all the stuff at the beginning of the game, like Ravio just stealing your house, some dude being able to turn people into the painting, and the title screen cutscene eventually gets explained later in the story, but it can just be a bit confusing and overwhelming when playing the game for the first time. A lot of people might have not experienced this, but I definitely did. Okay, moving on to Triforce Heroes, I'm gonna pick the single player campaign. This game is designed to be a multiplayer game, so obviously the single player campaign isn't gonna be as good as the multiplayer campaign, or that good in general, as is the case with every single multiplayer Zelda game, but I think this one's is easily the worst. The designs for the uncontrolled Links is definitely the worst, and the maps are harder to traverse with the single player mode versus the other multiplayer Zelda game single player modes maps in my opinion. Moving on to the open air Zelda games, for Breath of the Wild, I picked the glitches. This game is just way too broken. You can literally do anything. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, I enjoy jumping to the skybox by riding a horse and then riding another horse, but this really just shouldn't happen, and it's very easy to encounter these glitches glitches and bugs in a playthrough where you aren't aiming to do that. I set out to do a run without using any bugs or glitches on purpose, and I kept accidentally whistle sprinting while trying to call my horse. It's basically impossible to play the game without finding any bugs. Tears of the Kingdom, the surface overworld. Okay, last game. While the depths and sky in this game are not bad at all, the regular surface just feels kinda cluttered now. Since it's the same as Breath of the Wild's map, they had to add so much onto it that it just feels really cluttered. Like, why are there random rocks on the ground and a million bokoblins riding on stone taluses? Even though it's objectively better because there's more to do, I still like Breath of the Wild's surface much more because it just looks simpler and less cluttered. It just overall looks better in my opinion. There we go. It was kind of difficult to do this because there are so many good things about these games that you kind of don't pay attention to their issues. Remember, I love these games and I actually had a hard time writing this video script because I couldn't think of anything bad for these games. Anyway, remember to use my Green Man Gaming link and subscribing is free. And as always, thanks for watching.